Well, Michael was here. I guess he's gone now. Yeah, what I wanted to talk to Michael about was this thread where he and I were conversing here. I'm going to open up all these comments. This is in regard to this community post that I made today, referring to the fact that Carson from the Reasonable Vegan channel for months has, in my opinion, he sees me ask him in the comments a hard question or provide him crop deaths information that he does not want to acknowledge, and he'll ignore me. He doesn't want to admit certain things about crop deaths. He doesn't want to admit certain things about the deficiencies that come along with a plant-based diet. And so I made this community post in an effort to try to pressure him into addressing my latest attempt to educate him. So I wrote to him, Reasonable Vegan, the absorption of beta carotene from plant sources ranges from 5 to 65%, and linked to a study. And then I said almost 50% of women have a genetic variation which reduces their ability to produce sufficient amounts of vitamin A from beta carotene. So that's just the one study that's been done on that, found that half of women cannot sufficiently convert beta carotene to vitamin A. And these are just a few of the results of a vitamin A deficiency: is eczema, blindness, infertility, miscarriage, stunted growth, respiratory infections, wounds that will not heal, acne, and birth defects. So I find it despicable that vegans are willing to promote a diet that can result in such a profound suffering as a mother unfortunately giving birth to a baby with birth defects. If you don't have any experience with birth defects, I hope that you never do. It's one of the most suffering-inducing experiences that you'll ever have. And so I asked him, since you insist on wallowing in wild hypotheticals rather than focusing on learning about agriculture, because I have invited him again and again and again to learn about agriculture, but he's chosen rather to wallow in these wild hypotheticals about what if we can have AI robots playing with cows? What if we found a chimpanzee that could speak human language? What if an alien species came down here who spoke the human language and was intelligent? Would we give them human rights? You know, it seems like any distraction that he can find to prevent himself from having to face and acknowledge the huge, gargantuan, deep issue of crop deaths. It's not, when I first met him, Carson, he was telling everyone that crop deaths began and ended with those animals that were too stupid and too slow to get out of the way of the crop harvester machines. Since then, I think because he's got a few guinea pigs, which are considered rodents, he probably has an emotional attachment to them. When I told him about rodenticides, he seemed to really lock on to that as a legitimate crop deaths issue that should be talked about. I think part of it is the fact that he's got an emotional attachment to 3 rodents. I also think that it's an attempt to pacify me, to make me believe that he is doing his due diligence because he's talking to other vegans in the vegan community about crop deaths in regard to rodenticides. However, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and I have asked him to talk about crop deaths, but it seems that he would rather bring Michael McCaffery on, who doesn't want to talk about crop deaths, doesn't think that they matter, and only wants to make excuses for crop deaths, ignore crop deaths, belittle crop deaths, mock crop deaths, blame crop deaths on omnivores, although he wants to legislate a mandated, coerced vegan world. So, what's the alternative that he's giving omnivores and meat eaters is more death. So the alternative that they offer is worse than the regenerative omnivore diet. Darth Dripwalker is here. He says he finally graduated high school today. Congratulations, congratulations. I guess Michael decided not to show up. He was here for just a moment and then he was gone. But I'll probably do this again tomorrow. This is something that needs to be exposed. Here's Michael McCaffery responding. He says, the answer to this vitamin A deficiency caused by a plant-based diet. He says, supplement. Having a genetic condition that causes reduced beta-carotene to vitamin A conversion just means you need more of it. It's very easy to supplement, and depending on diet, a lot of the daily intake needs will likely be met by diet. So you're only supplementing the gap. So he's conceding that a plant-based diet is likely to lead to a deficiency, which he's calling a gap. He says it should be noted that this is a concern for meat eaters too. In the UK study you cited, participants were only getting 1/3 of their vitamin A as preformed vitamin A. The good news is you can test serum levels to see where you're at and easily supplement accordingly. Yeah, a serum test. So, in other words, he's acknowledging that the vegan diet is something that you need to go in regularly and get blood tests for. Now, can you imagine if the whole world was vegan and every person on earth was having to go in regularly and get a blood test to see where their vitamins were at? That's how precarious and dangerous the vegan diet really is. The recommended daily allowance for adults is 700 to 900 micrograms. There are supplements that have 7,500 micrograms per day, even at the lower end of absorption. If the conversion ratio is 1 to 20, beta-carotene to vitamin A, two of those 7,500 microgram supplements would meet your daily intake requirements. Also, if you're worried about overconsumption, consuming beta-carotene in excess is not harmful. Yeah, that's not necessarily true. So I came back and said, Michael, the vegan answer to every nutritional shortcoming of veganism is just supplement. I have some questions for you. Number one, are most beta-carotene supplements today extracted from plants, or are they chemically synthesized? Number two, is synthetic beta-carotene associated with a higher risk of cancer? The answer is yes. And also the answer to number one is most beta-carotene supplements are synthetic. Number three, what kind of plants are plant-extracted beta-carotene supplements extracted from? How many additional acres of these plants would be required in a vegan world? And how much would these additional crops increase crop deaths? This is a question that I don't think that Michael wants to face. Question 4, does synthetic beta-carotene synthesis require plants? How many additional acres of these plants would be required in a vegan world? And how much would these additional crops increase crop deaths? Another question that I don't think Michael wants to face. How are chemically synthesized beta-carotene supplements manufactured, and what are all of the chemicals required to manufacture synthetic beta-carotene? And do these chemicals also require other chemicals in order to be synthesized, as well as additional factories to produce them? So when a vegan tells you that these supplements are created out of thin air in a lab, the truth is that they require long lists of all types of toxic petrochemicals, huge factories, not just one, but usually between 5 and 12 factories, the kind you see in China with all of the smokestacks polluting the environment. So it's not a clean, sterile, sustainable process making all of these supplements. Number 6, how much petroleum is required to produce synthetic beta-carotene, including all of the chemicals required to synthesize the chemicals required to synthesize the synthetic beta-carotene? Number 7, what are the emissions associated with the production of synthetic beta-carotene? Number 8, what are the emissions associated with the production of plant-extracted beta-carotene? Number 9, do you have a list of supplement corporations that you can guarantee are trustworthy enough to hand over everyone's health and their power? And number 10, how many additional plastic bottles do you calculate would be required to deliver adequate beta-carotene supplements to a coerced global vegan population on a monthly basis? And I give him some links here to help him look up the answers to those questions. I say thank you, Michael, in advance for answering these relevant questions regarding your proposed solutions to one of the nutritional shortcomings of a vegan diet. Okay, so Michael, looks like Michael, he says, I'm happy to talk about crop deaths, but probably not in a 5-minute conversation, which is all the time I have left. How about Saturday morning? Yeah, we can give it a shot Saturday morning. But it's not just about crop deaths. It's about the entire destructive nature of the vegan supplement meme. I think that if you don't want to face those facts and you want to compartmentalize the conversation so that it's just about crop deaths rather than all of the different issues, all of the different problems that would have to be solved if we're going to eat a nutrient deficient plant-based diet. Let's see, Alex Wilder, you might be right, but I do think crop deaths are an issue worth discussing and finding a solution to. Yeah, except you haven't actually looked at it close enough, Michael, to be able to actually grasp the scope of crop deaths. Marlin Farms, is your position that nobody should supplement? Asks Michael. And the answer is yes, some people should supplement. Some people, like for instance, the elderly, cannot absorb vitamin B12 in their gut. And if you simply cannot absorb vitamins or minerals in your gut, then yeah, it makes sense to supplement. However, your assertion that everyone requires supplementation is based on looking at studies that look at veganism compared to the standard American diet, which is 70% plant-based. What I would recommend, Michael, is for you to get a copy of this book right here. It's blurry. It's called The Anti-Nutrients and Phytochemicals in Food. So I would recommend getting this book so that you can learn that plant foods actually have toxins and anti-nutrients in there that prevent people that eat a high plant-based diet. It prevents them from absorbing a lot of the nutrients that we need. So that might be something that, if you want to know the truth rather than just following vegan dogma, that you might actually pick up some books and start reading about the fact that plants do not want to be eaten. They're here to pass on their own genetic heritage onto future generations. And so the fact that they cannot run, they don't have legs, they can't run from predators like ruminants, that's called plant predation. They employ toxins and anti-nutrients and other defense mechanisms like bark, hard shells, thorns, toxic defense proteins like gluten, the effective defense protein and the defense chemical in poison ivy, poison oak, poison hemlock. These are proteins. So many of the proteins in plants are toxic, and they're there to provide a layer of defense for the plant. So they have toxins, the plants. They also have anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients bind with nutrients in the meal, prevent you from absorbing them. I've never heard you say anything about anti-nutrients. I don't think that you believe in anti-nutrients. I think that there's a reason why you and other vegans like Carson avoid talking about the plant defenses that lead to nutritional deficiencies. And I also, I'm gonna have to go here in a minute. If you're not going to come on, Michael, then we'll schedule this for another time. If you just want to, troll the comment section rather than coming on and talking to me, then we'll just have to do this another time. So, thanks for everyone showing up. Appreciate your support. This was a short one. We'll do a longer one, hopefully, on Saturday if Michael's nutrient deficiencies aren't preventing him from doing it. You'll have a nice night.